Here we have an Asus laptop, model G74S, that came in for no power. We already disassembled the board. That's one big laptop. We removed the heatsink. And let's go ahead and see what's going on. We're going to start with the power connector. Oh, and we see some soldering done to the power connector. Right here. Look at this. We see signs of flux. We see a burn mark here. This is the Ethernet connector. It's not our concern. And I honestly do not know what else was done to that board. Let me just do a quick visual inspection. I just want to see if there's anything else that was done to that board. Moving pretty fast here. I'm looking for signs of flux or signs of a prior repair attempt. And the board looks clean. That's good. And if we flip back of the board, no signs of flux anywhere. Except for the power connector from the back. Not the best soldering job, but it's functional. We're going to keep this as is, or we can just touch up on them later on, but right now we want to figure out why this board is not powering on. Power connector is here. We want to look for the power Mosfets, and I see two of them right here. Let's test to see if we have a short. Meter in diode mode. And look at this. We have a short right here. Okay, great. Let's inject 1 volt at the shorted area of the MOSFET, and we're going to monitor the board under a thermal camera and see what gets hot. Because when you have a short, it's like you have the positive and negative touching each other. They spark and they create heat. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to inject 1 volt at the shorted area of the MOSFET, and whatever component is shorting to ground is going to heat up. It's going to generate heat. And we're going to monitor the board under a thermal camera to pinpoint and locate where the short is coming from. Sometimes the short is obvious and we can pinpoint where the short is coming from, and other times we just have to look for it. If we inject voltage at the shorted area of the MOSFET, I see heat on the CPU, and the heat is not that much, 104 Fahrenheit. You can barely feel it with your hands. Yeah, barely feel it. A little bit warm. Very hard to tell. But under the thermal camera, it's obvious that the CPU is getting hot. Very obvious. What is causing the problem? In this case, we have to start measuring. CPU getting hot does not mean that the CPU is bad. It means something is causing the CPU to go hot. Let's measure some of the MOSFETs that we see right here. Here we have MOSFETs here that we're going to measure. We have MOSFETs right here that we're going to measure. And we'll see. Meter in resistance mode. I'm interested in resistance between gate and source. 209 kilo ohms. What about source and gate here? Oh, we have 5 ohms. That's very, very low. 5 ohms. That may be our problem right here. Let me continue with the measurements. 185K. Sounds about right. And what about here? We have 208K. So that may be our problem right here. We got it. Right now we cannot heat up from the top to remove the IC because we have aluminum capacitors all around. So we have to heat up from bottom of the board, so those caps do not just blow up. I do not know why I have a pink Sharpie, but that's what I have next to me now. Before we solder a new MOSFET, let's go ahead and prep the pads. Or before we do any of that, let's test. What measurements do we get between gate and source? Right here, source and gate. 183K, perfect. So that was our problem. And now we need to heat up from the bottom. We do not want to heat up from the top. Very nice. I'm just a little bit concerned for that 0 ohm resistor here. And we just want to shift it a little bit up like this. And now if we measure between gate and source, what do we get? And now we get 171K, perfect. So I'm gonna give this to Big Boss to reassemble and test, and I'll be back. We reassembled the laptop right here, the monster, and it's a no-go, unfortunately. We got rid of the short by replacing the MOSFET, but it looks like the CPU did not survive the short. I told Big Boss to reassemble it. There's no use trying to work on this board again. We're gonna let the customer know and ship it back to him. So that's it. We're gonna end it right here, and we'll do something else in the next video.